You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or a contribution at Post Office Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for the week of June 13th, 2025. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we are bracing for jackbooted MAGA thugs with badges to storm our state. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal. Hey, Blue Gal.
Hey, Driftglass. This week, we did take a short break from documenting the Republican assault on American democracy to watch the underappreciated 1948 film noir classic, The Big Clock, directed by John Farrow, starring Ray Milland, Charles Laughton, George McCready, Maureen O'Sullivan, Elsa Lanchester, and a cast of elite character actors. Has a very tight plot, escalating tension, classic black and white cinematography, and the last half of the movie appears to have been very liberally borrowed, or maybe we should say stolen, by that 1987 Kevin Costner, Gene Hackman, Sean Young film, No Way Out.
Yeah, that jumps right out at you immediately. If you've seen both of them, it's like, wait a minute, this looks really familiar. And the opening, right from the opening, the film is amazing. You get this wide shot of a city skyline at night. Very important. Everything's dark. Most of the buildings are darkened, but one of them is fully lit. And on one of the upper floors, another office light suddenly pops on. So that catches your eye. The camera sweeps across the front of the building, then through the window and into the darkened lobby where Ray Milland is found to be hiding from the guard for some reason. Okay, there's no CGI involved. This is 1948. And all of this had to be done practically with models and lighting and with a virtually invisible transition from the building to the interior.
Yeah, today you just use a drone.
Right.
I mean,
or you just CGI it. You just let AI just do your thing. Yeah. And we both concluded this is the greatest Alfred Hitchcock movie that Hitchcock never made.
Right. It's Hitchcock without the hitch.
Yeah. And it would be among his classics if he had made it. But the director is not very well known, so it sort of fell through the cracks. And if you haven't seen it, you should. It's a wonderful movie. Now, you might be more familiar with this kind of shot from Citizen Kane, slightly more famous than The Big Clock, where the camera moves towards a neon sign for the El Rancho nightclub and then seems to pass through a rain-covered skylight into the nightclub. That was a very big deal at the time. It shocked audiences. It was really cool. It was brand new. But other than giving you a guaranteed, rock-solid, professional left guaranteed recommendation for a movie you might never have heard of, we do have another reason for mentioning the opening scene of The Big Clock. And to be fair, there's actually two reasons we mentioned it. The first is we can now deduct the cost of buying the movie as a podcast expense. So thank you very much.
Ka-ching.
That's $14.99 right back in our pocket. And second, when you're trying to make sense of a much bigger picture, narratively, when you're trying to tell the story of a much bigger picture, it can be very helpful to zoom in and look at just a corner that is like representative of the bigger picture. That gets your readers or your listeners or viewers or what have you into the larger story you want to tell them through a manageably smaller door, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. And from the opening of The Big Clock, we know that something very unusual must be happening at the headquarters of the Janoth Publishing Empire in the middle of the night, because the entire building is lit up when every other building in the city is dark.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of zooming through one of those bright office windows, the camera takes us into a darkened and seemingly empty lobby where a character is hiding from authorities.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we're going to start out today, zooming in on one corner of the giant fascist dumpster fire, hat tip and $5 to Driftglass.
To this guy right here.
For dumpster fire, which he coined.
Mm-hmm.
And that dumpster fire that is the Trump administration. So we're just going to look at a little part of it so you can see the bigger picture.
Yes.
We can illustrate the bigger picture.
It's like a hologram or a fractal where you can see the whole picture in a fraction of the original. So This is from the Schittler Youth File. Meet Bo Loudon. This is his online bio. We've learned that Bo is, quote, an Instagram star, unquote. How special. His birthday is August 25th, 2006. His birth sign, no surprise, is Virgo. His birthplace is Merca, and he is currently 18 years old, going on 19, so he's aging fast. He is a content creator. He is an online social media personality and an Instagram star who became famous as a close friend of Barron Trump. That's Donald Trump's son, Barron Trump. He was also an enthusiastic supporter of Donald Trump, who he calls the greatest president of all time. Isn't that inspiring? He's a big fan of MMA and has met Colby Covington. So his life is pretty much peaked out. I mean, how do you get better than that? He posts a combination of lifestyle content and photos with various celebrities on his Instagram page. He has, by doing all this crap and being friends with Barron Trump, he has amassed more than 240,000 followers on his Instagram account. Isn't that exciting, Blue Gal? What a young up-and-comer.
Very exciting. Very exciting. Now, his mommy, Gina Louden, you might have heard of her. She goes by Dr. Gina. Mm-hmm. She is a, quote, conservative media personality, unquote. She was a member of the 2020 Donald Trump campaign's Media Advisory Board and the co-chair of Women for Trump 2020. Mm-hmm. She's a member of Mar-a-Lago and the current face of Citizen Voters, Inc. As to her credentials, in 2018, the Daily Beast reported that Loudon's book falsely described her as having a PhD in psychology. She has a PhD in human and organization systems from Fielding Graduate University and online school. In her 2018 book, Mad Politics, Keeping Your Sanity in a World Gone Crazy, Dr. Gina wrote that she has scientific evidence. This is what she says in her book. She has scientific evidence showing Trump to be, quote, the most sound-minded person to ever occupy the White House, unquote.
That's science, people. That's science, okay?
Yep. She has scientific evidence. Loudon has neither a psychology degree nor a license to practice clinical psychology. Mm-hmm. But you know what? Trump endorsed her book in September 2018, tweeting, Gina is great.
Mm-hmm. 3 words, 3 little words.
Yeah, he can't read.
No.
For lots of reasons, I think. At the time, the book was ranked number 436,949 on Amazon's bestsellers list. Shortly after the tweet, the book ranking jumped to 2,590. So she sold some books.
She did.
Because Trump said she was great.
3 little words and, man, jumped way the hell up there.
Yep.
Just on his say-so, because, he's the dear leader. Bo's daddy is named John William Loudon. He's a former Republican senator of the Mississippi Senate for the 7th District from 2000 until 2008. And I believe that seat is term limited, so he couldn't run again. And a member of the Missouri House of Representatives from 1995 through 2000. And we all know how Missouri politics work. He's the chairman of Florida Citizen Voters and Citizen Voters, Inc., a member of Mar-a-Lago and a former advisor to America First policies. Just a whole bunch of Donald Trump garbage. But what Gina and John William Loudon are most famous for is appearing on the show Wife Swap in 2013.
We will never do that, Drift Class. I just want you to know.
No. We might appear on Cat Swap, where we trade pets with some other family for a while, but that's about as far as we'll go. This is on that show, they swapped with a polyamorous and bisexual family. Gina Loudon was the first wife to ever walk off the set. I'm sure she did it very dramatically because she had no idea that this was going to happen to her family. Mm-hmm. Now, Bo Loudon, remember we're talking about Bo, their sire, their child. He's also very proud that he has posed for photos, which is apparently how you get 240,000 followers on Instagram, with fellow conservatives like Tucker Carlson and Roseanne Barr.
Oh, my goodness. Isn't that special?
Yeah.
Yeah, but now the Loudon family is famous for something else, Drift Glass. This is from the Daily Mail. Quote, one of Barron Trump's supposed best friends has claimed He's responsible for getting the world's biggest TikTok star deported out of the United States.
Ah.
Bo Loudon, a Gen Z MAGA influencer. I can barely read that. A Gen Z MAGA influencer.
Yeah,
this is where our world has gone.
Throw up in my shoes.
Who's previously been pictured with Barron and Donald Trump, said he reported Kabi Lame to Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. Loudon's first post on X came June 6th, when he wrote that Lame is an illegal alien, in all caps, before proclaiming that he has been working with the Patriots at President Trump's DHS to deport the Senegal-born influencer. ICE already confirmed Lame was detained at Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas on June 6th, the same day Loudon made his supposed involvement public. Lame, who has over 162 million TikTok followers, overstayed his visa after entering the country on April 30th, according to an ICE spokesperson. He was granted voluntary departure, a bureaucratic euphemism for being kicked out, or being self-deported, I believe is what that is,
Sure.
right?
He was offered the opportunity to leave before he was thrown out.
Right. Loudon admitted that he didn't watch much of Lame's content, but said Lame has posted videos expressing a hatred for Trump, unquote.
Yeah, which is not true. I've read enough about this story and about his actual content to know, no, that's just not what he does. But, he's an illegal, so we turn to MSNBC to pick up the story from there. Quote, on Friday, before Lame's detention was widely reported, Loudon alleged he had played a role in the influencer's interaction with immigration authorities. As you heard just a moment ago, I have been working with the Patriots at President Trump's DHS to make this happen, Loudon 18 wrote on X. So proud. In a video posted on Monday, Loudon alleged he heard from, quote, a few of his friends and business partners that Lame had overstayed his visa. I just called some buddies in the administration, and I've never seen anything happen so quick, Loudon alleged. They were like, we're going to get right on this, unquote. So you got it, folks? Yeah. If you got friends in the administration, if you're buddying up with Barron Trump, blow in a call and you can have the people you don't like taken right out of your life. Back to the article. During Trump's presidential campaign, Loudon was said to have played a role in helping the 78-year-old degenerate monster court, they didn't say that, I'm saying that, court young male voters. Loudon said he helped set up Trump's interviews with Aiden Ross and Joe Rogan. It was the honor of my life to be able to organize and attend the legendary all-caps stream between rightful President Trump and my friend Aiden Ross. Loudon wrote at the time, Gen Z stands with Trump, unquote. That's all caps, an exclamation point. Typical shouty shout from an 18-year-old, which is what he is. Now, this has been your Schittler Youth Update.
It's all there. I mean, this is what we're talking about taking a little piece of something, and then from this little piece, you can see the whole thing. You can see the toxic, decadent roots of the Republican Party there in one creepy, dysfunctional family. Super ambitious blonde wife and politically ambitious husband who are gung-ho MAGA scum and second-tier conservative media celebrities, entirely dependent on Donald Trump's patronage for their wealth and fame.
Mm-hmm.
These are bullshit credentials that they have. I mean, particularly Dr. Gina.
Dr. Gina, yes.
Bogus just like medical opinions.
Dr. Phil and Dr. Roz and Dr. Gina.
Right. It's a shitty book being pimped into a bestseller by Donald Trump. Voter suppression front groups, Trump super PACs, a state-level Republican elected official moving from Missouri to Florida, and hooking up with the Mar-a-Lago goon squad. And you can bet that voter political action committee thing that they chair, quote unquote, is an opportunity for them to use private planes to fly to Vegas and do whatever they want. That's what's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
And cherry on top, they are minor reality TV celebrities.
Yes.
And the two of them raised a MAGA monster, a Schittler youth, who at a different time would definitely have ratted Anne Frank out to the Nazis for hits and likes.
Yeah.
And patted himself on the back on the socials for doing it.
And his parents would have been so proud.
Yeah.
His Nazi parents would have been so proud that he used his contacts in the Reich to, hunt down a Jew, get him out of here, and would have been all over the social media of 1938, 1939, 1940, congratulating their little boy on what a good job he's done. Now, would you like to hear a little bonus content that you will find nowhere else? You probably won't find this story anywhere else because we're just that good.
Yeah.
But there's another depth to it, another layer to this story. And it's from the Daily Mail, March 31st, 2025. Quote, her own MAGA fairy tale may have hit the skids after her split with Donald Trump Jr. But Kimberly Guilfoyle was beaming with pride this weekend as her younger brother married the daughter of one of Donald Trump's closest allies in a stunning wedding at Ashford Castle in Ireland, DailyMail.com can reveal. The newly nominated U.S. ambassador to Greece, 56, because they just had to mention her name, her age, was the maid of honor, and maid there is just making me laugh.
She was, stooping Don Jr. for,
and
as
Gavin
his
Newsom,
fiance, quote unquote.
Well, and before him, Gavin Newsom. I mean, I think maid is misspelled here. It should have been M-A-D-E, not M-A-I-D.
Well, and don't forget her out of wedlock kid that broke up her marriage with Gavin she was preggers with another guy's kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
It is one giant reality TV fucking dysfunctional nightmare. Anyway, maid of honor, correctly spelled. Saturday, as Tony Guilfoyle tied the knot with Lyda Loudon, daughter of conservative TV personality Dr. Gina Loudon. Energy drink executive Tony, 53, fell for Lyda, 29, after meeting 2 years ago on the ritzy Palm Beach social scene where her parents are well-connected members of Trump's Mar-a-Lago club, unquote. That's right, kids. They are crossbreeding. They're marrying their children off to each other because that's how you establish aristocratic dynasties.
Mm-hmm. Now, switching gears, as predicted, the Musk-Trump thing has de-escalated.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump is still in the Epstein files, if any of you MAGA care about that anymore. Presumably after someone told Musk that however much money he has, Trump has bigger guns and more ways to fuck him over than Musk has of retaliating at the moment.
Yeah. If you have an army and Marines and you can just seize people's assets and nationalize his space program and take his money away, those are levers that Musk doesn't have.
Well, and I think Musk losing major profit share in Tesla on the stock market on Friday also sobered him a little bit. Musk has taken down the drug-fueled rage tweets that kicked off a slap fight that made Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf look like church on Sunday. Musk then humbly apologized for going too far.
Yeah.
I wonder if on a phone call with Trump he blamed the drugs. This is from the New York fucking Times, quote, Musk expresses regret over his criticisms of Trump. And this is written in, the awful New York Times style book, deference words. President Trump and Elon Musk traded social media barbs last week.
Is social media barb the girlfriend that they share between them?
Mr. Trump has said that he has no interest in repairing the relationship with his former advisor. Elon Musk said in a social media post early Wednesday that he regretted some of his posts and comments about President Trump last week, which had led the president to disparage the tech billionaire, a feud that played out in real time on social media. Mr. Musk said on his X platform that some of his posts about Mr. Trump went too far, unquote.
Didn't say they weren't true.
No, he didn't.
Just said they went too far.
Yeah.
Mistakes were made. Who even knows who made what mistakes? I mean, how can we even know? Now, Donald Trump, being the bigger man, of course, reciprocated by telling the world that Musk can basically fuck right off and that he damn well better not threaten to primary any Republicans who vote for Trump's bloated monstrosity of a bill. When asked about the Epstein file, Trump snapped, "That's old news," and just moved on because that's what you do. That's what you do.
And the MAGA media did too.
Yep, because we're being told by the dear leader this is no longer operative, just like in Vietnam. That term is no longer operative. We're not talking about that anymore. So no one on Trump's state media wants to talk about the big bullshit bust out, right? And public opinion is very much against the unprovoked invasion of Los Angeles. Also, it appears that everybody's been told to shut up about tariffs and tax cuts and the Epstein files and all those other things.
And whether there is a trade deal with China,
right?
Or Taco just caved again.
Right. We're not going to talk about any of that. We're not going to talk about the news.
That's not news anymore. No. The only thing that's news is America. Yeah.
Right. America. And everyone has agreed, as they always have all along, to just ignore the fact that Trump is now very clearly mentally unspooling in public.
Yep.
So you ask yourself, well, what is left for Fox to talk about, right? Well, there's Riley Gaines, who we can talk about every 15 minutes. And, of course, auto pens, which are very important, very, very important. And, of course, Joe Biden, who is the worst president who ever lived, who destroyed America. He destroyed America. And Trump has saved America, barely. He's working so hard to save America.
Anytime any quasi-liberal that appears on Fox starts talking about Donald Trump, there is an equally loud person there to say that Joe Biden is history's worst president ever, which is just quantifiably untrue.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I wanted to say the Riley Gaines story got, a new tank of gas added to it because Simone Biles, the greatest gymnast in the history of the world, decided to say something nice about trans athletes this week.
Right.
And I don't know if you know this, Driftglass, but Simone Biles is black.
Yeah, I heard that. About her.
There was a whole lot of intimation on Fox this week that she had stepped out of her lane.
Right.
Didn't know her place.
Oh, you mean like the shut up and dribble people? Shut up and play ball people? Yeah. It's very important to put those people back in their place.
Standing up for fellow athletes is, and then someone had just the audacity to say, well, we should maybe get some male gymnasts to compete against Simone Biles. And everyone that watches gymnastics were like, fucking bring it.
Yeah. Do you know what would happen?
Do you think a man can do a split?
Do you have any idea what would happen? How bad that would look? Hey, let's get good old Bo Loudon out there
Let's get Bo Loudon out there to do some Simone Biles flips.
Yeah. But the big story on Fox is that Joe Biden
is history's greatest villain and worst president ever for the 4 years that he created a soft landing for the post-COVID economy and expanded healthcare and lowered the cost of prescription drugs and
cut childhood poverty in half.
Infrastructure bill, Driftglass.
Yeah, got factories. Factories are being built in red states. Cut child poverty in half. Lots of stuff that he did that either will be forgotten immediately once people are told to forget it because they are just reprogrammable meatbags.
Yeah, no.
Or that Trump will just slap his name on it and say, I did that. Yeah. I built that factory. That's me.
Signs an EO saying he's undoing it, and then he signs an EO says he's doing it, and then it's Trump's.
Right. And it's real simple to figure this out. And these people, I think I have a victory here. I can chalk up a victory because after so many years, I believe my wife has joined me in the conviction that about 60 million Americans are unsalvageably brain dead and can't be and can never be saved.
I saw the poll numbers on Los Angeles, and that made me think, okay, my husband is right about reprogrammable meatbags and that they are not malleable enough in any way to be reasoned with.
No, never.
They repeat what they hear on Fox, and Fox is the shit factory, and they are the toilet.
Yep, and they're happy to do it.
They just gladly flip open the lid and let Fox shit in their heads, and then it comes out of, I'm not going to get more gross than that, but the shit in their brains from Fox, they call thought.
It comes out of their mouths.
So when a pollster comes and talks to them, they sound smart because they're saying what Sean Hannity said on TV.
And so I think it's important for us to note this moment in time where I was right. And that I think if you go
Is that
on
because
Fox,
it's so rare, drift glass?
it is deeply rare, and because I married smarter than myself and better than myself in every way. So every now and then I got to take a little victory
Well,
lap.
I just had more hope for my species than you do.
No,
I think.
my species overall will be fine. It's this blight on this species that needs to go. But I think if you're going on Fox News, unless you're Pete Buttigieg, in which case you have the ability to mesmerize them with your beard and your gayness and your good talking and your points and your calmness.
And being a young white vet.
Sure.
Who might be their grandson.
I think the best strategy you can use to during your one time on Fox, because you'll never be invited back again, is to scream at them. Just to literally leave your chair and just get right up in their face and say, "You fucking liar. And you fucking idiots who listen to this fucking liar, how the fuck do you live with yourself? Fuck off and die, every one of you. You're miserable excuses for citizens. And I have no hope that you will ever figure out how completely fucked you are and how these people have conned you out of everything you ever believed in and left your country dead because you were too dumb and too racist to know any better." And then you drop
I think
the mic.
we've all had that fantasy of having that moment on Fox.
Yeah, I know.
And then drop mic and walk out. But
honestly, just so many of our friends and colleagues are the but people and try to reason with it because they want to have a reasonable argument because they keep and they keep having the one that's completely one-sided. And the only thing that it doesn't work, it doesn't change anything, but it might be more save your soul and save you a lot of energy and agita to stop pretending you can reason with them. Just scream at them and at every opportunity. And I don't care if it's the supermarket, Just scream at them. Don't let them get a word in edgewise. Do what they do to you. Do not let them get a word in edgewise. Just bellow them and walk away. And then go on, the liberal equivalent of Fox News, which is basically the professional podcast. And brag about it.
I don't think I want to be the flip side of that. No. Hey, I want to say that this is a little bit of Bible bitch right now.
Yeah.
The news is all bad.
Yeah.
But this is I swear to God, this is the Hydra head of evil raising its, powerful, scary picture. And if you want to read a little bit of Revelation, which is, as my dad considers it, a drug-induced, science fiction story.
Yeah.
But
about Rome and Nero.
Exactly.
All
it's all allegory. But it can be allegory for today, too.
Sure.
And Michael and his angels fought, and the dragon fought and prevailed not. And Michael is one of those angels that carries a fucking sword. He is not gentle with feathers. No. He is a soldier. And so we have angels on our side that are soldiers. And I've been very impressed with the number of military, going on with that. One of the top generals testified before Congress today and said, no, the U.S. military is not for this purpose. This is not what we're trained to do. We are trained to be a fighting force for America, not a fighting force against Americans.
Well, and I that's a really good point because I have encountered people on social media who are, I guess, understandably frustrated. Why don't Democrats do more? Why aren't the Democrats pushing back? Why aren't they this? Yeah. Which is fine. But the answer is because the Democrats are doing that. Lots of them are doing that. They just don't. They don't have. They're not on your phone doing it to you personally. You're unaware of. Let's face it. Human beings are unaware of 99.99% of everything in the universe.
Yeah, we all are.
And we're all 98% unaware of everything happening on Earth. So if right now something is happening to in Congress or out on the stump or wherever on a panel somewhere that would blow your mind about how good it is, odds are really good you'll never hear about it. Mm-hmm. So when I do hear people like that, and I understand their frustration, I try to drop into their timeline. Here is one senator after another, just ripping the skin off of RFK Jr. or some other liar. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's but I wish more would do that. Or here's another, and here's another, and here's another. There's a lot of people doing this, but you never hear about it because it's not news, and because it's not news, you think it's not happening.
Right.
And so the problem is not necessarily that Democrats. I do hate the fact that all Democrats are responsible for all Democrats.
And are responsible for all Republicans, as we said on Tuesday, too. Yeah. Don't forget, they're responsible for everything that's happening throughout the world, internationally and nationally. Yes.
But the idea that you don't, because it didn't happen directly in front of you, is not happening. And it is reassuring to me to know that I can go out onto the interwebs and look and find really articulate, responsible, young, old, and middle-aged Democrats really taking it to the Republicans, because they're doing it every day. You just don't see it. But just because you see it doesn't mean it. I forget what Venus Flytrap from WKRP, the wonderful episode where he was teaching a young man without teaching him. And an angry young man, well, you promise to go back to school. And Howard Hessman turns out is asleep behind the sofa the whole time and wakes up and says, "You were a teacher, weren't you, man?" He goes, "Yeah, I wasn't." But he tells this kid who he's getting through to, because he's speaking to him in his own language and he's familiar with his own neighbor, teaching him how atoms work. And well, you can't see an atom. He said, "Well, can you see Africa? No. Is it still there?"
Yeah.
All this is happening, and we don't see most of it, which is why it's easy to get discouraged, because the loudest megaphone in the room is Fox News. So 80% of all the shit that happens is either they're coming through Fox or coming through Fox as strained through the legacy media. It's easy to get pissed off about that. But that's my 2 cents worth. Anyway, there are people, as you have told me, there are people out there telling the truth this very week, Blue Gal.
Yeah, and the good news, there are some websites that aggregate good news. Yeah. There's some people in Coast that do that. One of the good news items this week that I found fascinating is we are seeing a change in demography in Asia, where parents are much more likely to be happy to have a girl child. And those disparities between boy babies and girl babies, which for many, many years indicated infanticide of girl babies.
It did, 100%.
And whether that was through abortion or something, post-birth actual murdering your baby, it was happening because you could just see it from the numbers of boys versus girls in certain age cohorts, which, as China has found out, creates humongous problems.
It does.
Down the road. Humongous problems. And so...
down the road is always someone else's problem, Blue Gal.
Right. But the one-child program meant girl babies got murdered.
Yeah.
In China. And it has led to, insanity and human trafficking. Human trafficking of women is a big problem in China. So, and throughout that part of the world. But what they're finding is that disparity in babies, and also polling parents, expectant parents, and finding that parents are equally likely to want a girl. And if they have a boy, to want a girl to balance their family.
Yeah.
And not that all parents want whatever baby they get, but there's a much more of a desire and a willingness to admit that having a girl's okay. And that's progress. That's really progress.
Yeah.
We have some other good people to highlight this week because we think that's important. There are 3 people that I want to highlight this week who told the truth and spoke the truth. And the first is our governor, J.B. Pritzker.
Safe and compassionate immigration policies, I believe, are vital. In fact, my own family owes everything to this country accepting a young refugee named Nicholas Pritzker to its shores over a century ago. My great-grandfather fled the massacre of Jews in Ukraine and arrived in the United States when he was just 10, without a penny to his name. A social service agency provided him a place to live, a public school taught him English, a public university allowed him to pursue a higher education. My father and grandfather both were naval officers and raised their families with a powerful sense of duty to community and patriotism to our country that still lives deep in my generation. Both were successful entrepreneurs. My family story is not unique. Today, Illinois is home to 1.9 million immigrants. Just like my great-grandfather, they are hardworking, raising families, and paying taxes.
That was J.B. Pritzker, his introductory comments speaking about immigration to a congressional committee, which then the Republicans just went nuts on him.
I would like to reiterate something I said yesterday on the Bradcast, by the way. That was fun with Digby and Brad and Desi. I all love and hats off to Gavin Newsom for his speech. It was blunt, it was honest. I really appreciate it. But I did have to note to these three coastal elites that I was on the radio with that my governor never had Charlie Kirk on his podcast.
Yeah.
My
or
governor never had
Savage.
Michael Savage. Nope, never no Michael Savage on that podcast. So,
Yeah.
you know, I'm glad Gavin's learning.
Let's hope he can be taught. Speaking of coastal elites, the second person telling the truth this week is Congresswoman Sidney Kamlager-Dove of California, who took to the microphone at a Democratic congressional press conference and said this.
Obviously, if they did arrest Gavin Newsom, then it would change the narrative. And then it would be about the illegal arrest of a sitting governor who was elected by the majority of voters in the state of California, and not about a felon who is in the White House who is manufacturing chaos to distract from the fact that he is cutting hundreds of billions of dollars in needed programs that will kill people. This is about if it bleeds, it leads. So he has created and manufactured violence so that he can have a show on the television. But other people, older people, folks who are disabled, young people are going to be bleeding when Medicaid gets cut, when people are evicted from their homes. And this has been an illegal deployment of the Marines and the National Guards without the request or the consent of the sitting mayor and the sitting governor of the state of California.
And finally, this young woman, no name, was wearing a mask in a woman on the street interview with MSNBC from the streets of Los Angeles.
It's just not about not having as many immigrants here, but at this point, it's a racism thing. It's racist.
Amen. It's the fucking racism.
Yep.
And you said yourself earlier today, Driftglass, Stephen Miller doesn't want any Hispanics in this country.
No, he wants a white country.
Or Latinos.
It's a white country.
He wants it to be a white English-speaking country.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into some more news about that.
I would like to thank the Bradcast, as I said, for having me on with Digby and Desi and Brad. It's always fun to go, and I seem to be showing up there more often. I think it's
and that was the Wednesday show. If people want to go back and look for it, we'll have a link in our show notes about that.
That was yesterday. That was Wednesday this week. But I would like to repeat something I said there, which is that Donald Trump is the most Republican president of my lifetime, possibly the last century. And by that I mean, if you simply take the conservative movement and the Republican Party and boil them down to what they really want and what they're willing to do to get it, just ignore all the people who want to talk about who's a true conservative and what true conservatives want and true conservative values, which is all bullshit. It's all bullshit. If you just boil it down to what they actually want, the one thing they actually want, and how despicably they're willing to go about getting it.
I would say tax cuts for billionaires and a white America. That's the two things.
That's it. Well, no, those are two separate things. Those are two separate things. And here's why. And getting rid of Roe versus Wade. But here's the thing. What the donor class of the Republican Party wants are giant tax cuts. The people who pay the bills, that's all they've ever wanted. Everything else is just bullshit. They don't care about anything else. The people who run the party, who pay the bills, etc., the only fucking thing they care about is taking all the money. They want all the money.
And if they can't take it in tax cuts, they want to loot the Treasury and privatize public institutions.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. All they care about is the money. And they hate anything that takes money away, and that's their public. But when it comes to racism and white supremacy and abortion, those are just means to that end, because nobody's going to vote to give rich people all the money.
Yes, that's
to
true.
Convince 60 to 70 million morons that they're not voting for tax cuts for rich people. They're voting for white America, to keep America back great again, to stop those evil commie Democrats from murdering babies, from the trans people and the gays and the blacks and the Jews occasionally, and of course uppity women, and on and on and on and on and on. So you have the ends, which are giant tax cuts, and the means, which are make the base do stupid, racist, crazy shit to elect people who will accomplish the giant tax cuts. Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump has done that.
Yep.
He has made the base more self-evidently evil and insane and stupid and malleable and brainwashed, that so clear that nobody can deny it. Even our Never Trump friends, who were all about defending the base and they were being bamboozled, are now they're fucking brainwashed. Yeah, and you brainwashed them. You should know, you were there. But even Donald Trump has simply refined the essence of the Republican Party to its peak, which is do absolutely despicable, horrible, unforgivable shit to get stupid people to vote to give rich people more money. So in that regard, he is the most Republican president of my lifetime and probably the last century. Yep. Anyway, end of my special commentary. Buy my book. Buy my book. Donald Trump's never going to say Driftglass is great, but buy my book anyway.
What book?
I don't have a book. I'm never going to have a book. No one would buy a book by me, Blue Gown. No one would buy a book by me.
Hey, Driftglass, let's do a news roundup. This is from The Guardian, and this is the big story today.
Yeah. Oof.
Senator Alex Padilla, a Democrat from California and a U.S. senator, and a vocal critic of the Trump administration's immigration policies, was forcibly removed and handcuffed as he attempted to ask a question at a press conference held by Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, in Los Angeles on Thursday. The incident has shocked his colleagues from Capitol Hill to California. In video taken of the incident that has since gone viral on social media, Padilla is seen being restrained and removed from the room by multiple men. "I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary," Padilla is heard saying as he struggles to get past the men removing him from the premises. "Hands off," he can be heard shouting, unquote. Clear that they just think he's a Mexican.
Right, exactly.
They don't know who he is. And so later that morning, Senator Padilla, U.S. Senator from California, made a statement.
Of course, over the course of recent weeks, several of my colleagues, have been asking the Department of Homeland Security for more information and more answers on their increasingly extreme immigration enforcement actions. And we've gotten little to no information in response to our inquiries. And so I came to the press conference to hear what she had to say, to see if I could learn any new additional information. And at one point, I had a question. And let me emphasize, just as we've emphasized the right for people to peacefully protest and to stand up for their First Amendment rights, for our fundamental rights. I was there peacefully. At one point, I had a question. And so I began to ask a question. I was almost immediately forcibly removed from the room. I was forced to the ground, and I was handcuffed. I was not arrested. I was not detained. I will say this. If this is how this administration responds to a senator with a question, if this is how the Department of Homeland Security responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cooks, to day laborers out in the Los Angeles community and throughout California and throughout the country. We will hold this administration accountable.
In other news, the U.S. Supreme Court has voted to grant DOJ access to our Social Security records and data. Justices Kagan and Sotomayor and Jackson, of course, dissented.
From the Washington Post, quote, "A former D.C. police lieutenant convicted of leaking information about a police investigation to the leader of the Proud Boys group on the eve of the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot was sentenced Friday to 18 months behind bars." unquote. Donald Trump, where's his pardon?
Where's his pardon? You read about the sheriff of the town being also the grand wizard of the local Ku Klux Klan.
Here it is.
Yeah, that hasn't changed. That hasn't changed. Donald Trump called for the arrest of the duly elected governor of California for things the governor said that were in fact true. He admitted that Gavin Newsom had committed no crime, but he still wants him arrested.
Trump threatened that anybody who protests Birthday Boy's military parade on Saturday, and it looks like it might be affected by thunderstorms, fingers crossed, will be met with very heavy force.
From NBC News, quote, California Governor Gavin Newsom called Trump's deployment of 4,000 National Guard members and 700 Marines to Los Angeles a brazen abuse of power and an assault on democracy, unquote, which is self-evidently it.
From Bloomberg, quote, Texas Governor Greg Abbott will deploy National Guard troops ahead of planned anti-ICE protests, saying Texas will not tolerate the lawlessness we have seen in Los Angeles. You mean you've seen on Fox?
Right.
Troops are being stationed in cities including San Antonio, where Mayor Ron Nirenberg said he received no notice and called the move external provocation, unquote. He should have called them outside agitators.
Which is exactly what they are.
Yeah.
This is from The Independent, and this is a story when I read it, I tried so hard to be a better Christian than I am. But I failed miserably and just went, yeah, fuck you. Reading the whole thing. Again, this is from The Independent, quote, a co-founder of Latinas for Trump has excoriated the president on some of the immigration-related arrests being carried out by his administration, which she called unacceptable and inhumane. In a statement posted on X over the weekend, because Blue Gal, nobody issues press releases anymore, they just post on X and blah, blah, blah. Ileana Garcia wrote, "This is not what we voted for."
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
The post from the Florida state senator asserted that she had supported Trump, her fellow Republican, through thick and thin, and understood the need to remove from the U.S. undocumented people who had committed crimes. But she criticized how federal authorities had arrested people at immigration courts across the country despite credible fear of persecution claims, as the Trump White House ramped up their mass deportation campaign after his second presidency began in January. I guess she missed all the mass deportation now signs at all the fucking Trump rallies. I don't know what she was doing during that time. I guess she was just blinded by his glowing personality. Back to the article. Referring to Stephen Miller, Trump's Homeland Security Advisor and Deputy Chief of Staff, Garcia said, "What we are witnessing are arbitrary measures to hunt down people who are complying with their immigration hearings," which was the fucking point the whole time. All driven by a Miller-like desire to satisfy a self-fabricated deportation goal. This undermines the sense of fairness and justice that the American people value. Yeah, not you American people, not Republicans, not your fucking party lady. Garcia's statement expressed solidarity with comments issued Friday by another Florida Republican, U.S. House member Maria Elvira Salazar. In a statement, Salazar said the Trump administration policies had exposed thousands to deportation and seemed to disregard the duty to due process that every democracy must guarantee. Golly, you think so? You think so? That comes as a complete shock to all these people. My goodness, if only there'd been some warning, Blue Gal. Salazar's statement added that those with pending asylum claims deserve to, quote, go through the legal process, while urging the Trump administration to stay focused on removing every criminal here illegally. Garcia alluded to how she represents Salazar's congressional district in Florida's state Senate and said her Cuban refugee parents are now just as American, if not more so, than Stephen Miller. I am deeply disappointed.
Stephen Miller. More American than Stephen Miller.
Stephen Miller. Boy, that's going to make him real happy to hear that. Brown person calling him less of an American than her. I am deeply disappointed by these actions, Garcia said, and I will not stand down, unquote. So what? He's elected. You already gave him the gun and told him to point it wherever the fuck he wanted. And now you're going to go all Susan Collins on us going, you're very deeply disappointed. What are you going to do about it? What's your plan there, Ms. Garcia? What's the fucking strategy? What are you going to do? Are you going to lay down in front of the tanks? That'd be kind of cool. Why don't you do that? Protest? Going to hold up a sign?
All these Hispanic and Latino Florida Republicans who are second up against the wall when the revolution from Trump comes.
That's right.
And they think it's not going to happen to them because they vote R. Stephen Miller doesn't care.
No.
He doesn't need your votes.
Yep.
This is from the Kansas Reflector. Quote, this Kansas town doesn't hate immigrants enough, so the Trump administration plots vengeance. The Trump administration has put my town, the place my family and I call home, on his hit list for a thought crime. What horrible thing have the people of Lawrence, Kansas, and wider Douglas County done to deserve this fate? Apparently, we don't sufficiently detest immigrants. Put questions of legal status aside. As we all know, it doesn't matter to the hate-bloated buffoons in Washington, D.C., and he should have said Republicans at that point.
He should have. Yep.
It doesn't matter to the hate-bloated buffoons in Washington, D.C. what papers a person has or doesn't have. They will ship you off to a foreign gulag if you're the wrong color or in the wrong place, because Lawrence has had the unmitigated audacity to care about people who look different. It has been threatened with the full wrath of the federal government. It might be shocking if so little was shocking these days. The Department of Homeland Security posted a list of 500 plus sanctuary jurisdictions on its website May 29th, highlighting cities and counties that supposedly run afoul of its anti-immigrant agenda. 3 days later, officials took down the page after an outcry from hippies?
Yeah, right?
No.
Communists?
No, from
No?
local law enforcement. Thanks to the Internet Archive, you can still browse the list and read the government's inflammatory rhetoric. DHS demands that these jurisdictions immediately review and revise their policies to align with federal immigration laws and renew their obligation to protect American citizens, not dangerous illegal aliens. As Charlie Pierce points out in his column today, he's old enough to remember when Mike Lee was a tenther, and the 10th Amendment, states' rights with everything.
Yeah. Well, and you can tell by the construction of the DHS sentence that in their mind there's only two classes of people: American citizens and dangerous illegal aliens. There's nothing in between. That's all there are. You're either, if you're not an American citizen, you must be in the other category.
And American citizens are all white.
That's right, all white. And they all love Donald Trump.
There's a lot to unpack there. Immigrants commit fewer crimes than those born in the United States, for one thing, but let's press on. The point is that my town and country landed on the list. Let's try to figure out why. Back in 2020, the city passed an ordinance protecting undocumented folks. 2 years later, the Kansas legislature pushed through a bill banning sanctuary cities, and Lawrence subsequently revised its ordinance. What's important to note is that the current language gives wide berth to state and federal law, making clear that the city won't obstruct or hinder federal immigration enforcement. By the same token, that doesn't mean the city has to pursue a brazenly anti-immigration path. Lawrence can and should represent the will of voters while following applicable law. And those voters, through their elected representative, chose to make their city a welcoming one. So how did Lawrence end up on the list? Apparently because it didn't spew enough hatred for the White House's liking. A senior DHS official told NPR that designation of a sanctuary jurisdiction is based on the evaluation of numerous factors, including self-identification as a sanctuary jurisdiction, non-compliance with federal law enforcement in enforcing immigration laws. That's why law enforcement got upset about this.
Exactly.
They don't have the resources to be DHS agents. Also, restrictions on information sharing and legal protections for illegal aliens. Again, it's that there's only two kinds of people.
Yep.
No one can be legally waiting for their application process to become citizens. No one can be legally doing that. If you go to your immigration hearing to try to get citizenship, you're an illegal alien and you should be arrested and carted off.
And you don't deserve a lawyer or due process or anything because those are the legal protections.
And the easiest place to find you is an immigration hearing. So we're going to pluck you out.
Or at, as they refer to it generically, I suppose, Home Depot. When you're waiting to be picked up for a job that you want to go out and, put someone's roof on their house for a fair wage.
That guy who's a construction guy and said, I can't put together my crews anymore.
Yeah.
My business is failing.
Yep. My friend's business is failing. And then the question is asked of him. I know who you're talking about. So who'd you vote for? Oh, I voted for Donald Trump.
Voted for Trump.
Yeah, well, I didn't think it would happen to me or my people. They're nice people. I know them. I know their family. I know their families.
I'm going to be able to say goodnight to my daughter tonight, and these guys won't.
Yeah, isn't that a shame? Isn't that a shame what happened?
Because your vote did that to them.
And then asked, do you regret your vote? No, not really, but I think it's gone too far, you know?
He's gone a little too far.
Never liked the tweets, Bluegill. Never liked the tweets.
He never liked the tweeting, and he is an independent constitutional conservative, of course.
Yeah. And if he could just reach Donald Trump or Stephen Miller, I'm sure he could straighten him out about this horrible mistake he's making by, throwing my crew in the back of a van and toting them off to some gulag. I'm sure he didn't mean to do that. Again, another asshole who you'd have to put him upside the head with a 2x4 to get him to pay fucking attention to what his own party is doing right in front of him because he doesn't want to see it because it's not on Fox News.
Yeah.
From USA Today, quote, RFK Jr. fires entire CDC vaccine advisory panel. Glorious. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. ousted all 17 members of a panel that advises the CDC on the safety, efficacy, and clinical need for vaccine, unquote.
Meanwhile, the government on Wednesday hired back more than 450 Centers for Disease Control and Prevention employees that were fired as part of the widespread restructuring that took place in April at the Department of Health and Human Services. Internal documents shared with ABC News show.
Meanwhile, the New York Times reports that, quote, Trump will restore the Confederate-era names of 7 Army bases, reversing changes Congress mandated in 2021. Speaking of Fort Bragg, he listed Fort Pickett, Fort Hood, Fort Gordon, Fort Rucker, Fort Polk, Fort A.P. Hill, and Fort Robert E. Lee. We won a lot of battles out of those forts. It's no time to change, unquote.
From The Guardian, the EPA will repeal federal limits on greenhouse gas emissions from power plants and weaken mercury pollution rules. I know some people I'd like to drink some mercury. The proposal would scrap Biden-era regulations that required coal and gas plants to cut carbon emissions or shut down by 2039, while also loosening limits on toxic substances like lead, arsenic, and mercury by up to 70%. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin. Let that sink in. Go Google his name if you don't know who he is.
He hates his own species. Yeah, he hates his species.
Yeah. Called the move a dagger through the heart of climate change religion and said the rules had saddled our critical power sector with expensive, unreasonable, and burdensome regulations. More than 200 health experts warned the rollback would lead to the biggest pollution increases in decades and contradict the agency's legal duty, unquote. That smells like a lawsuit coming. Yeah.
And finally, quote, the Justice Department, this is from CNN, the Justice Department said Trump can revoke national monuments created by past presidents, reversing a 1938 legal opinion that said the Antiquities Act doesn't allow it, unquote. And the reason I put that in there is to irk my wife because that was a West Wing subplot 1,000 years ago during the before time.
Yeah. I want to give a hat tip, too, to the Smithsonian, who are defying Trump's firing of the director of the Smithsonian. Mm-hmm. Some people are really standing up to this BS.
Also, shout out to the Fulbright board.
Yes.
Who resigned en masse, I believe.
En masse, because Trump is interfering with their work.
Yeah.
There are heroes. Mm-hmm. Each week we post to our Patreon page and website an Internet Kitty sent in by you, the listeners. This week's Internet Kitty is Caddy Lavelle. Caddy enjoys monitoring her Bluetooth-enabled freshly poured kibble dispenser. And that is what she's doing in this picture.
Oh, the Internet.
Yeah. Forming cat-shaped lumps under lap blankets, rearranging sock drawers, and preventing her humans' sewing projects from floating away. That's very nice of you, Caddy.
And very important. It's very important.
To lay out your entire body on the fabric and the tissue paper.
Save the sewing project.
Yeah.
You never know when gravity's just going to stop. You just don't know that.
I'm so sad. Right after Joann Fabrics went out of business, the big 4 sewing pattern makers are going into liquidation now because of tariffs. Whether the tariffs happen or not, the uncertainty caused the top 4, which, by the way, are all owned by one company, which is disgusting. But the top 4 sewing pattern makers are now going into liquidation.
And I have such fond memories of my mom, who was a seamstress, among 1,000 other things that she was, a baker and a teacher and a great mentor and a wonderful human being. And her little envelope, flip-top envelope with McCall's or something. I'm not sure.
McCall's is one of them. But simplicity,
She'd shake out these paper-thin patterns and lay them out and come out there with a big sewing scissors and carefully cut. And, of course, it cut a little diamond where you're supposed to cut around. But
to match the diamonds,
but those paper patterns were like such a part of my childhood because they were being done.
And printing on big wide pieces of tissue paper, there are only apparently a very limited number of those machines in the world, and they're all in Asia. And Trump fucked with them just enough to put them out of business.
Way to go. Or certainly make it.
And you got to know, I mean, I'm sorry to distract everybody so much, but they waited for Joann Fabrics to go out of business before they made that announcement. And it's just, it's not good. Crafters are, I'm wearing a shirt right now. I wore it on my podcast yesterday, actually. It says, "Hose mad, Your Honor." So's mad. S-E-W-S. So's mad, Your Honor. Anyway, Caddy Lavelle eats freshly poured cat food, our fake sponsor.
Of course.
Whether you serve pet store perfection or dollar store dreck, your cat will sit on the shelf above her Bluetooth-enabled feeder and demand that the food they eat is only freshly poured. Freshly poured, freshly poured. Oh, my Lord, it's freshly poured. And you can visit Caddy Lavelle, what a pretty kitty, at our Patreon page, patreon.com/proleftpod, or our website, proleftpod.com. And you can send your internet kitty, dog, or other pet to us at our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, subject line, Internet Kitty. You can also write to both of us at proleftpodcast@gmail.com. Feel free to write us. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service. Go Postal Unions. Letter on the air unless you say otherwise.
Something you really shouldn't forget is our famous gourmet coffee guidelines. If you can, in fact, afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself or for your cat, I don't know why you would, but maybe you do. I hear about this Bluetooth-enabled, freshly poured kibble dispenser, and I think all things are possible. So buy one for us, because it's not charity. This is, in fact, our job. And this is episode, 908, Blue Gal? We're up to 908, right? Holy cats. If you can spare $5 a month, please spare $5 a month to your favorite podcast at patreon.com/proleftpod. And the other thing, as you all know by now, that you can do to help us that doesn't cost anything is to recommend this podcast to someone else. Rate and review and all that good stuff. But if you have a friend or a colleague or somebody out there who you think might be bereft or might benefit or might listening to a couple of middle-class people from the Midwest talk about old movies and politics, put your headphones on their head and make them listen. Do that for us. Force them to do it. It's for their own good.
Force them to listen to it.
It's for their own good.
Blast it in your office.
You see, Marty McFly in Back to the Future, show up in their bedroom and put your Walkman headphones on their head and blast it into their heads because, it's for their own good. It's for their own good.
Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, Little Gal, this week the Internet Kitties want to shout out a big thank you to Tim Berners-Lee for creating the most extensive inventory of cat pictures in the known universe, the World Wide Web.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2024-25, GGBG Productions.